Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much. And first of all, I want to welcome everybody. Bienvenidos to tonight. There's a lot of people to thank, and some of them will talk. But you can see our sponsors that were there. We want to give them a big round of applause for making this possible. Some of them are outside. All of them are outside, actually. I want to acknowledge the council members that are here. I believe we have Councilwoman Claudia Mariaca, right? Here she is. I don't see any other council members here at this time, but certainly I want to thank, there's a couple of other special guests that are here. Where's David Chen? Where are you, David? I know you're here. There you are. Director General of TICO, who's a great friend, and we've worked very closely with the Taiwanese community, both here with the sister city, and hopefully we will get to Taiwan. We were supposed to be in Taiwan in a couple weeks, but now we're going to have to postpone that. Ana Maria Sena Paciani, who's the Deputy Consul of Brazil. Where are you, Ana Maria? There she is. A community that's also been having a number of events and growing in our city of Doral. Has always been a large community in our city of Doral. I really want to thank DORCAM also for helping organize this event. There's great passion from the members of DORCAM and the board, and you've already met Chris Barake. Chris is Christopher Barake, who's been a great friend also at. He's also in that university not too far from us, but he's a board member of DORCAM. Daini Tapia, who's here, right? Marcelo, Jovel, and Flor. Where are they? Flor is still here. Flor, there you go. I really want to thank them for their vision because, I'm trying to help them along, but they've done a fantastic job from the ground up as the Doral Contemporary Art Museum, bringing art and culture to our city. And from the day that I met them, probably 2.5 years ago, maybe, I don't remember, almost 3 years ago, their vision has driven this goal of bringing something that I think in this next year will be with the beginning of our groundbreaking of our cultural center, the changing of the zoning behind us. It'll bring a lot of good things to the city. And there are 4 women who give of their time to our city that also make this possible. And they're very, very, I can tell you, they're probably one of the hardest working advisory boards we have. And I want to thank the Commission on the Status of Women Advisory Board, not only for supporting this event, but all the work relating to highlighting women's history in our city. I think most of them are here. Is Pastor Tina Floyd here? No, she's not? Okay. Yvette Gonzalez-Pekovic is, right? There she is in the back. You guys wave. Elizabeth Nieves. And is Marlene here? She's on her way. Marlene Gonzalez is here. She'll be here soon. I want to thank the 4 of them because they've done some fantastic stuff. This year, we're celebrating, obviously this event celebrates and honors Women's History Month, which is all of March, and International Women's Day, which is Sunday, March 8th. But very importantly, by the way, so you all know, obviously you might say, well, he says that easily because he's a man. But I have 4 women at home, right? 3 girls and my wife. So the dog is a male, like I always remind people, Romeo. So, as I told our 2 oldest daughters, who are now both voters, how important it is to vote. And this year we are celebrating, and the city has passed a resolution in support of, and I hope all of you, men and women, celebrate the 100 years of women being able to vote in this country. People don't remember, and that we should definitely give. That the women's suffragette movement began much before the amendment was passed that gave women the right to vote 100 years ago in the year 1920. But it took a lot of work and effort from many, many people, many women and even some men, to try to make sure that women were able to get the right to vote in this country. So as I have 2 daughters that hopefully will vote for me, I'm hoping this upcoming year, but they, at the very least, what I care about is that they vote. And it's a special year for us celebrating the women's suffrage movement. So the board once again does a fantastic job, and I thank them here. Muchas gracias for the great job. There are a number of, I want to thank the people here from the city of Doral besides our PIO, and we got Maggie, Marco, the tech people that make this possible, Manny Pila, who is from here with our Economic Development Department. But I think today you're going to have a great opportunity to hear from a wonderful panel, and I want to thank them for being here. Some of them I think are here for the first time in Doral, right? Or have all you been here before? Both of you been here before? Okay, all right. So then, but I'm glad to have you here, and I think we're gonna. It's a great event where you're gonna learn and also hear from the five of them on not only about the arts, but also it's not just Doral, obviously, but women in art this month. So once again, thank you very much. I think we have some, and Chris, I'll turn it back over to you. We're going to recognize our five. Okay, but Claudia, if you can come on up. You can bring some of the DORCAM people you want. The ladies, come on up. We do have some recognition for you. If you can all come on up in a second, and we'll go one by one because I do want to recognize you, certificate of appreciation for being here. And we're not doing it in any particular order, but the five of you will be able to come up. And I'm going to read the general gist, okay, of what we're talking about. We'll start with Dr. Carol Damian. And the certificate of appreciation is being given as mayor and on behalf of the city council. And really the most important thing, as always, on behalf of the residents of the city of Doral, we appreciate your support and involvement in the Women of Vision, Women in Public Art panel discussion. I commend your efforts in advancing women's leadership in the arts, education, and enterprise, and thank you for your dedication in highlighting the accomplishments and contribution of women in arts. And you come in the middle. Where are board members? Where are they? Where are they? Where are Women's Advisory Board members? Are you guys hiding or what? Come on up. You guys got to be in the picture too. Oh, we also, hold on, let's turn it. Well, we got to, I'm going to give it to Flora to use a.
So just, the same, we also have a certificate of appreciation for you as well too. And thank you for being a part of this panel. And you hold a special place in my heart because you have always been supportive of all of us when we were students and the art community as a whole. So thank you. So this is on behalf of the museum.
Double whammy, that's pretty good.
We need more people
Yeah, we
on
need a
that
couple
side.
more people on this side.
I'll get on that side if you
Yep.
want.
Go ahead.
I'll scoot over.
Now we're even.
Okay. You got it? You want us to move forward? Oh, the light, all right, we got the light. There we go.
Across your forehead.
One more. Just turn around. That's what happens when I had more hair, it'd be okay. It would not be bad. Yes, now I'm gonna say, now I want to certainly want to call up Carrie Phillips. Carrie?
Who said it's the first time in the
Is it your first time in Doral? Now, Carrie, was this your first time in Doral?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, not in Doral,
But in the city of Doral?
well, here, yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. That's good enough. Come on in.
I've driven through.
There you go.
Driven through.
We'll get you to drive a little bit more. We also
All right,
have
let's
from
step
DORCAM.
forward. Everybody.
Yeah, let's
Yes.
step forward a bit.
You know the drill now. Thank you.
That's so
Wait,
nice.
there's one more. Yeah.
DORCAM has a very sophisticated, yeah.
There you go. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's one more. Did you want to?
Yeah. The next one?
Carola.
Carola Bravo. Hey, Carola. I know you've been in Doral before. Come on in again, babe.
Thank you.
I know Carola's been here because she's been at some of the events we've had.
Yes. Is it? Yeah. Thank you.
Like that floor makes Marcelo do the work, that's good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Carola. Amanda Sanfilippo Long. Either way, you want to balance it out, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Come here in the middle, my
Go
baby.
for it.
There you go. And we have another one also from DORCAM for you.
Oh.
You get a double whammy over here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you, Amanda.
Oh, sorry.
And we have last but not least, Liene Bosque. Liene, thank you.
Parabéns.
Obrigado. So. Un poquitico más adelante, no hay problema, no hay problema. Thank you for the five of you for being here, and we certainly appreciate it. We hope it's not your last time in Doral, even the ones that just got here. So
We have one more.
we have one more.
It's International Women's Day.
Yes, it is.
So thank you.
To the women.
all you
There you go, Claudia Mariaca. Hold on a second.
You see? I don't
Since it's International Women's Day, there's women from many different parts of the world here, not just from Brazil or Portugal, from Cuba, Venezuela, Colombia.
This is for everybody here. No, thank you guys.
Hopefully DORCAM will remember me International Men's Month. But thank you again very much. Well deserved. Thank you very much. And again, this is going to be a great opportunity for us to learn. I know many of you are here, and hopefully, as we move to have our new cultural facility in about less than a year, we'll be able to have this event the second time over there in a place more appropriate for, not that this isn't, but more appropriate for an event like this. Thank you very much. And Chris, I'm turning it back over to you.
Yeah, well, let me introduce one of our members of the Women's Advisory Board here. So it's a great pleasure, and have speak to our crowd and say a little bit about what you guys do.
My pleasure. Good evening, everybody. My name's Yvette Gonzalez-Pekovich, and I'm one of the members of the Doral Committee on the Status of Women. It's essentially an advisory board, and our role is pretty much to advise the council on what can be done to sort of further the goals, the ambitions, the needs of women in this community. I serve on this board along with 3 additional women. Unfortunately, our chair couldn't make it today, but I know that she would have loved to have been here, and I've seen this amazing turnout. 2 things. So first and foremost, I want to really commend, again, DORCAM, Danny, Marcelo. They were the ones that reached out to us and asked us to participate in this event with them. And to me, that was incredibly telling as to how forward-thinking they are and how honestly and genuinely committed they are to women, women's issues, and really culture in this community. And so, again, I commend you. Amazing job. And I really hope you all notice it and just continue getting involved and support them moving forward. I did want to take this opportunity to just tell you about what we do, and more importantly, invite you all to our monthly meetings. Sometimes we're able to get away with a special meeting, an additional meeting sometimes. But we meet in the first Tuesday of every month. We meet at 9 a.m. It's usually an hour. And essentially what we work on is just, either events where we want to get out into the community and meet people and find out what's going on and what's needed. We are very, very committed to sort of identifying some of the underprivileged or those who need assistance in the community. We talk about that quite a bit. And we talk about a number of issues. And so I really, really welcome all of you to attend, whether you live in the community or not. And obviously, if you do, it would be our privilege to have you attend. It's been a really exciting year, especially like the mayor mentioned, with the centennial of women's right to vote. We really want to use this year as an opportunity to sort of bring more people into our meetings, into our fold, support us in what we're trying to do moving forward. And sort of with that said, I want to thank you all for attending. I'm super excited to see the turnout and everybody that's here. And it's really a testament to how important culture is. And sort of the cultural arts and promoting that in this community. And that makes me even more proud to live in the city. So thank you so much, and please join our meetings.
Thank you. So So we'll go ahead and get started. We'll go ahead and get started then. So thank you to the mayor's office and the council for being here. So we're going to start with the evening, but I'm going to switch something up real quick. I think we have to take a moment to recognize somebody who has worked tirelessly to make this event possible. And I think it's only fitting that it being an event celebrating women and women's accomplishment, women of vision, that we bring up our own women of vision over here, Daini Tapia. She's our communications and community engagement director. And this really could not have been possible without her. She's the one that made this happen. And I couldn't be, she is, but you know what? I think it's important that we hand it over to you and you introduce our panelists. I couldn't be prouder of you, and I feel very fortunate that you're a part of our team, and you're a fantastic representative of the City of Doral, and so thank you for everything you've done, and I think it's time for you to take the stage.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you, everybody. Welcome again. And I think without further ado, we're going to call Dr. Damien to the stand so that we can get started with our presentations. As you prefer. Great. That's perfect. Thank you.
You have a microphone there, right? Okay. Thank you. Thank you for being here. It's really wonderful to see so many people and to celebrate what women every day celebrate, and that is being women. I mean, really, nobody does it like a woman, right? And it's also very nice to be in Doral for International Women's Day, because this is a really international community. And I've seen it grow over many years, not only because I've been at FIU for too many years, but also because I've been working with Marcella and Flor for many years, and Christopher, my student, very proud of him. So we've watched the cultural community at Doral, and it's very exciting to see what's happening here. So before I start, would you raise your hand if you are an artist? Look at that. I know, looking around the room, that there are many, many artists here, and that's wonderful. So there are many women artists, and I don't have to tell you that the history of women in art is not an easy one. Until very recently, we didn't even know who the women were. I remember going to school in the Dark Ages that my textbook never included a woman. They just, can you imagine a whole history of art? Not one woman except the Virgin Mary. She's the only woman that appeared in the textbook. And then over the years, and starting in the 70s, the feminists started to question this and protest against it. And lo and behold, the big art history textbook that some of you are old enough to remember had one woman, Georgia O'Keeffe. One woman. And then over the years, every time there was a new edition, they'd add another woman to it. But it's still not equal by any means, nor have so many women that should have been recognized in their lifetime been recognized. So it's really important for us to understand that and to be on the forefront and to say, okay, we're here, and it's time that we are recognized for our accomplishments and everything that women do every day of their lives. So it's really fun to be asked to be moderating this panel and to talk to this wonderful group of artists and that I know, and I know their work, and I think it's going to be very interesting. I think when I started to think about how I was going to do this, I thought a couple of things that I'm sure are going to be a thread that are threads that run through their presentations as well, is the perception that women cannot do art in public places, that women cannot do monumental sculpture, that women cannot, right? I mean, there's this perception out there. You look at something big, like right out there, or anywhere throughout the city, and somebody says, well, that's by so-and-so, and you think, a woman did that? Now, really? Why can't a woman do it? Because to do these gigantic sculptures, the process is not easy. But it's not easy for a man either. It's a process. You need to know certain things in order to put a monumental work of art out in Hurricane, Florida. You have to work with engineers. You have to know codes. You have to know how to draw. It's not just about making a pretty slide of a work of art and saying, okay, I'm going to put that there. It's very complicated. But why can't a woman do that? There are women engineers. There are women architects. There are women mathematicians, as well as, of course, fabulous women artists. So they certainly can. You're going to hear how these women are able to take their work and put it in the public realm, because they can master all of these things. So, you know, the next time you go by a giant sculpture, I mean, I live in Coral Gables, and Alice Aycock comes right off of Park Avenue into Coral Gables and does these gigantic flowers, and people say, how did she do that? She must have had a whole team. Of course she had a whole team. I mean, everybody works with a team. You don't ask that of the men. Did you have a team working with you? But you have to ask Alice Aycock about her team. Who does this for you? Do you ask Jeff Koons, who does those giant things? No. So, you know, it's this perception that women cannot do this, that over the years we're changing all of that. And certainly in Dade County, as you're going to hear, Dade County has one of the greatest art and public programs in the country. And it's a program that Amanda will tell you about. And as we go through the vetting process, the jurying process, I sit on the trust for art in public places, so I'm the sort of the last step of a long process. But as we look at the works, we don't know if a man did it or a woman did it. We're judging a work of art, and we just don't know. And then all of a sudden we say, wow, look at this. These are 6 women who have reached the short list of all of these applicants. And it really doesn't matter that they're a man or a woman if they can go through the process. And so that's, to me, that's why we're here tonight, to understand that women can do this. And if you are a woman artist and you might be kind of discouraged about it, saying, oh, I don't know if I can go through that. Yes, you can go through that process. And it isn't that it's always easy. It isn't easy. We could have, 150 applications for 4 commissions, and they can come from all over the world. But at the same time, we might have a local park, which we've said often is a very good way for artists to start to become engaged in the process, because they're smaller, they're local, you get your foot in the door, which is also very important, because those of us who sit on the committees really do recognize the artists that we've worked with and how professional they are, how successful they are. So if you do a wonderful little fountain in a small park, or a little mural in a small park, that's all part of the process of recognition to work your way through to, I mean, let's face it, something like the cruise ports, we're working on cruise ports right now, and they're huge $1 million commissions. That's a big deal, but you just don't submit yourself and say, I'm going to do that. I'm going to work with Norwegian Cruise Lines and I'm going to decorate their port. That's where the process really gets difficult, especially when you're working with the building being built. So with that said, I am going to introduce Amanda, who is going to take you through Miami-Dade. You are next, right? You are. And as a way of introducing 3 artists that have been very successful and are working with the Miami-Dade Art and Public Places.
Thank you.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Danny and Chris. It's a real honor to be here. Really appreciate it. And as Carol, my esteemed colleague and member of our trust of Art and Public Places, go women, and women can do it. Thank you so much. That was a really powerful, energetic opener. So I'm excited to make a presentation tonight about some highlights of the Art and Public Places collection. It is by no means a comprehensive journey through the women in our collection, and I say that most importantly because we actually have among us 2 female artists who have completed public art commissions with Art and Public Places of Miami-Dade County. We have Carola Bravo, who is right here, and thank you, Carola. And I'm sure she's going to be identifying her work when she shares with us images of hers. So, and then we also have Karen Reifus, who is with us tonight. She's back. Wave, Karen. So, and Karen's commission is so new, hot off the presses, that I did not include it tonight, but you're just going to have to wait and see. It's an unbelievable commission at the Caribbean Village housing development in the southernmost part of the county. So unbelievable work with Karen. It's a really incredible major mosaic tile mural. So I'm going to skip right through. Finally, we get to the art. So many of you may be familiar with Art and Public Places of Miami-Dade County's Department of Cultural Affairs. It is one of the oldest public art programs in the country. It was actually established in 1973, which gives us a really incredible legacy with which to work. And essentially, the ordinance is such that 1.5% of the budgets of construction projects go towards the commissioning of public art. So when you think of all the constructions that's happening in Miami-Dade County, this counts not only for land that's owned by the county, but every municipality that's within the county as well. All 34 municipalities? 5, thank you. So this has created an amazing precedent for public art programs across the world and across the country, most particularly. And we are, really dedicated to celebrating work. If any of you are familiar with Isamu Noguchi's slide mantra, this is in Bayfront Park, and yes, you can slide down it. It's a real joy. Next time you're there, go climb up the back. There's a staircase and slide down it. It's wonderful work. So just to give you some highlights of the collection, these are, of course, some of the major commissions that we've done that you may recognize. So you may not know that the Miami line, the iconic work that spans over the Miami River, is part of the program. You may not know that the terrazzo floors inside the Adrian Arch Center are by Jose Badia. Various other, incredible projects. But really, I'm here to talk about women tonight. So I'm going to talk about some of the artworks in our commission, some of the artworks in our collection. So this is an important work by Alma Thomas, and I wanted to note this because this is a woman. It's one of the oldest works in our collection. You can see it's dated 73, and we currently had this work in the 9th floor elevator lobby of the Stephen P. Clark building. If anyone's been downtown to Government Center, you know that's not the coolest place in the world, the 9th floor. So unbeknownst to us, we started to really get inquiries about this work. Alma Thomas has risen to such incredible prominence. Her career is finally being recognized, and her works are selling for millions of dollars. And we have an incredible example. It had never been exhibited in a museum exhibition. It had never been part of a catalog. Now it has had both in various, this is currently on view at the NSU Museum in Fort Lauderdale. So I wanted to share with you, Alma's work, Night Sky Mysteries, in our collection, is just next door to a Rothko. So that's a pretty cool experience right here for seeing an artist whose career has really come into prominence and is finally being recognized. Some other examples of her work, we don't own these, but just to get a feel for the kind of painting that she's known for. A similar artist, early acquisition by a very important Colombian artist named Olga de Amaral. This is an image that we have this is one of the only images that we have. The work exists, and we're currently finding a place to relocate this very, very important work. Many of you will find incredible research about this artist as she's being recognized for her monumental fiber works. These are some other examples of her work that are not in our collection, but she's, again, coming into major prominence. I'm doing a chronological, if you can't tell, and I'm going to try to keep it snappy because I know we have great things to get to. So Athena Taka, many of you may recognize this artwork. It used to live beside the Douglas Road Metro Rail Station. It was built in conjunction with the Metro Rail stations, and it has found a new life. It's being relocated, as artworks sometimes are in our program, to a really beautiful, prominent area close to the Brickell Metro Rail Station, and it'll be figuring prominently in what will become the Underline that many of you may have heard of. So we're really excited about this artwork, monumental. These are other examples of Athena Taka's work. She's a Grecian artist originally, and she's also known for large landscape works, artworks that integrate the landscape and pavers, seating, hardscape into her work as well. So we're really excited to have a pretty key example. Another amazing artist in our collection, Beverly Buchanan. This is an artwork that really represents an artist who has come into major prominence, and her work is now being published and written about and having museum exhibitions all over the world. So, there are precedents in our program, as there are in many public art collections, to really work with artists that are really truly artists and are sort of, they may be making a groundbreaking piece of work. Maybe it's their first public artwork, but it becomes something that is a keystone to their career. This is currently on view at Arlington Heights Metro Rail Station, one of the earlier works in our collection. These are samples of artwork by Beverly Buchanan, not in our collection as well. And I wanted to call attention to this work. Many, many of you may be familiar with this. It's just beside Government Center. It's very popular with skateboarders. It's very popular with people using it to wait for the bus, where they sit on the orange slices, and I have no problem with that. I do have a problem with the skateboarding, but now that we have the skate park just beside, we're in better shape. So this work is by, constantly referred to as Klaus Oldenburg. Klaus Oldenburg being one of, art history's most famous artworks, as the art history textbooks that Carol's referring to, plenty of Klaus Oldenburg, okay? Not much about Kusha van Bruggen, his major collaborator. So this work, when we refer to it, really should be noted as the Klaus Oldenburg and Kusha van Bruggen work. Kusha van Bruggen was a major collaborator and partner of Klaus, and they created and accomplished dozens of important pop art works across the country and across the world. So this is really key and important and exciting to remember. Some other views of it. Amazing piece. If anyone knows the story, the idea was that the bowl of oranges was sitting on top of Government Center, and then it fell off and cracked and broke into pieces and smithereens all over the place here. So, and it does have a fountain feature, and originally when it was commissioned, it had a kinetic feature as well, where there were pieces of some of the segments actually moved up and down, and the fountain was on a program. We're looking into restoring that, and hopefully we'll be doing that with, Kusha's passed away, but maybe with Klaus if he's still interested. Some other examples of monumental works that were collaborations of the two of them that are all over the world. This one is in Milan on the right. So, continuing on into the 90s, we have Maria Martinez Cañas. This artwork is huge. You can see the scale of it in the next image. This is a really incredible work, which is actually made of, it's photo sandblasted mural on glass. All of the images, almost all the images that you see are actually photo negatives. So this work was painstakingly created. Sadly, throughout time and changes at the airport, this work has been compromised, but we're actually in the process of rebuilding it. So we're really excited about being able to repurpose and reactivate this work and actually probably remake it as well. So these are the lengths that we'll go to. Whoop. Going next image. Oh, that's what happened. Okay, great. Some other samples of Maria's work, not in our collection, but happy to show samples of her work. And she's based here and has an amazing legacy here as a teacher and, in other words. Many of you may know the work of Lydia Rubio, the Women's Park. So this is exciting for today, and this is a beautiful park that incorporates hardscape, integrated elements, a gate feature. It's a beautiful example of Lydia's work, and we also have other work of hers at the Port of Miami, and we're excited to have this piece as well. This one is from 2009. Some other views of the park. So talk about construction. Some other examples of her work. Great. Many of you have seen this work, walked on this work, experienced this work. This is the longest artwork in our collection. It's over a mile of terrazzo that we have at Miami International Airport. There is the black with the bronze inclusions and the white section with the bronze inclusions. And many of you may have been lucky enough to find the part of the airport where the black and the white terrazzo meet and come into this amazing hurricane shape. And it's just an incredible, incredible special work of Michelle O'Donnell's at our airport. There's some other samples of Michelle's work. She's been recognized internationally and nationally. Oh, there's Athena again. Gonna keep on going. So I wanted to share a few more contemporary examples of works that we finished more recently. Naomi Fisher is a Miami-based artist and also has work working in New York. This is at the Fairchild Botanical Garden. These are beautiful friezes that are part of the building, integrated into the architecture, the local flora and fauna. I also wanted to show a work of Naomi's that was a temporary work, also along the what is the future underline. This was a piece called Puzzled, and it represented. Whoops, I'm going crazy here. This was a piece that was meant to be activated by ballet dancers, and it was a really beautiful interactive work. So public art can also be interactive. This work I'm pretty excited to share news of. It's a new commission that we just opened in Liberty City called I See Myself in You. And as you can see, it's a monumental facade of a building at the Sandro Rivers Theater at the Audrey M. Edmondson Transit Village. It's an incredible work. It's on view. If anyone receives the Greater Miami Conventions and Visitors Bureau quarterly publication, when you open it up, it has the huge poster centerfold, which is really exciting on the reverse. But again, this is an example of a collaboration between an artist that is probably one of the most well-known in the world right now, Hank Willis Thomas, who collaborated with Nikisha Durrett, an artist whose career is really young. But I wanted to highlight this because this is really an incredible example of artists helping each other. But again, when we think about Klaus Oldenburg, Kusha van Bruggen, this is something that we have to become accustomed to, the fact that there are these pairings and these individuals that are working together. Here's some views of it at night. It's activated by neon. And here's examples of Nikisha Durrett's work, based in Washington, D.C., and some of her other pieces. You can see she brings in her graphic style into the list with. So they used all these different poisonous plants, and ultimately the story of how Christopher Columbus died with a poison arrow. Some of these plants derived from those tales. So this is an interesting colonialist or anti-colonialist, post-colonialist intervention. And here's Ponce on Biscayne Boulevard. And this is just another sample of artworks that are maybe in the public realm, but in ways that are somewhat unconventional. So this was a commission by us as well through a series of works that deal with sea level rise and changing climate. So Augustina Woodgate, with her project RadioEE.net, creates a series of roving broadcasts. So in this instance, she decided to take her radio station on a boat and travel Miami's waterways and broadcast interviews with various experts on sea level rise. And so she really connects with various timely topics. These are the whole list when you visit RadioEE.net, which is this platform of various interviews that she's done in surprising and delightful places that connect with different themes, interviewing experts. So that's another example of how art can be in the public realm in a way that's surprising. And this is another commission by an artist named Shabalala Self, who we worked with at Fringe Projects. And this was actually a neon work embedded into a grocery store. The neon work you can see says Bulalu Noodles, and she wanted to talk about the economy of the corner store and the ways in which that space holds power in many different ways. These are some examples of her work. She's been interested in corner stores and those kinds of contexts for a long time. Some other samples of her work. So that's a little snippet, and I hope you enjoy art in public places. Okay. Oh, yes. Here she goes. I got one. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for including me in this wonderful panel. So I'm going to show, I was invited to show the participatory side of my practice and my work. But in order to do that, I decided to show some of the previous works or works, site-specific works, where you can understand why or how I got to the participation in the social practices that I've been doing currently. So I have, I'm really interested in explore sensorial and the things that exist between architectural, urban, and personal spaces. And then I look at, always I'm interested in looking between the places and the people and how one influence each other. So you see this body of works is site-specific pieces that I used latex to brush on into the windows of this museum in Lisbon, as well as the second one that it was in Lisbon as well when I was living there more than 10 years ago. And thinking about working with existing architecture and how we can think differently of what exists in the history and memories and that we have from places. So usually my process often entails creating traces of existing or lost structures to express ideas relating to memory and history, as I mentioned. So the desire to approach architecture in a tangible way led me to explore how to collect the built environment in a viable physical way. So I have a background in architecture, and that makes me really think about the spaces in order to not be building more things, but to think of what it's already done or the history of architecture. And this was a project presented in Chicago, where I went to grad school and looking at the local architecture of Louis Sullivan. And this piece is a drawing on the floor with debris of buildings that were being renovated in Chicago that I collected. So I spent the whole month doing this drawing on the floor, so there was a work in progress where people would pass by the window display and see me working and doing the drawing. But at this time, I had no interaction with the public. And none of the other pieces that I present previously, I was doing at the place, but then showing them. So my presence was not part of the work, but in this case, my presence was it. Let me see. Yeah, so then as you can see, prior to that, and even this piece, site specificity, it's a big part of my practice, and in that way, I usually researching the history of the place where I'm placing the work. So this piece was a temporary sculpture at the Socrates Sculpture Park in Queens, New York, where they have a fellowship where any artist can apply with a project. And I was selected for 2016 and talking about, and this project was thinking about the neighborhood of Astoria and Long Island City, transformations and gentrifications, and what it's to think about the history that still remains there. And this project was really important for me because even though I study architecture, this was the first time I was thinking about, doing by myself the foundation of the work. And I had to have a group of contractors helping me with the layer, the bricking. So I was like, it was actually a really great way to physically construct something in opposing to the architecture school with all the planning and projecting. And this work also was important for me because as you can see in the details, there is some reliefs of ceramic pieces that I did as part of another work in progress that I have, that it's been 10 years that I've been doing. I'm going to talk more about it. But in this case, it was a way to incorporate the connection with the public that visit the park. So through the process of the fellowship of the 1 year, I was going for walks and interacting with the public and looking for textures of the park. In this case, was right outside of the gate, and other textures that was inside, and the trees and the nature as well. So then that was part of the. And then came back to the sculpture fired as a ceramic piece, as you can see here in the details. But this also is. I'm gonna show. Just to understand more, because this project started 10 years ago when I was in grad school, and it started as a collaboration, and then later on we kind of took from different perspectives and different positions. But is in a way for me to think about the city, but also interact and and look at how other people also perceive and how they interact with the city. So it started as doing me and my collaborator, Nicole Seisler, and then people start to ask, oh, what are you doing at the street? Why you were collecting? Why you're touching the architecture? And then we start to invite naturally and say, oh, do you want to do one? Do you want to find a texture in the city where you can capture, and this will become a ceramic piece so we can remember that fragment? So it started really naturally, my social practice in this way of how to interact with passersby and have the audience participating into the piece in itself. So here I have another couple of other walks that we did in Lower East Side in New York, where we're looking to in this case was a walk based in the immigrant history of the Lower East Side, the Jewish community, the Chinese, the Dominican. Even when we started back in Chicago, was also our interest was to look at the immigrant neighborhoods, like the old Polonia, Koreatown, Pilsen, where the Mexicans, so was kind of focused on that kind of framing in that way in terms of mapping that neighborhood. So then here you see an iteration of the project when come back to the gallery space or the exhibition space. It kind of works as archive as these textures, but also the exhibition space becomes a starting point for new walks. So in this case, we were preparing clay and starting walks from that space. So in that way, we are also questioning also the exhibition space being also a process and almost like bringing the studio to the exhibition space. And yeah, so then I moved to the other, to my most recent project that I hope you can check it out because it's on view now at MoCA at North Miami, Museum of Contemporary Art of North Miami, where it's kind of, it took a while for me to understand how things will be connected, but I've been thinking a lot about weaving as a primarily structure and how that was meant for the beginning of the civilizations to protect the body and to create a cloth to wear and to protect from the cold or from the weather, and how that structure embedded in the fibers, could be connected to the structure of the architecture or the shelter. So through the collecting weaving, I'm proposing to weave hammocks, and the hammocks also I'm looking as this shelter for the body, kind of this cocoon-like, to protect this body. So I'm from Brazil, and so I was something that I was missing the most by living in US. It was like to have my hammock, and that project started like really basic with that, my personal connection to it, and then but also talking to other groups of immigrants and say, oh yeah, in Venezuela we also use hammocks, and so this project started a lot about also thinking about being. Assuming what I am here in this country, and I guess it was mostly because of the political current situation about how immigrants are seen, and how we are perceived. And so then for me, the hammocks was it's been an interesting point of thinking about that connection between different cultures in Latin America, and also to look back to the craftsmanship that exists in our cultures, and kind of to see our similarities and our differences. So it's been a really interesting project, and I hope you can explore and also contribute to the project. The project is, I'm going to talk more, but at the exit I have a folder of the exhibition, so hope you can see that until the end of the month. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Leanne. So now we have Miss Carrie. Do you wanna-
Hello.
Sorry.
Yeah. 3:00. Oh, I love it. You can see the next one. So my name's Carrie Phillips, and I'm kind of a storyteller at heart. So I was practicing and everything I wanted to tell you and keeping it within 5 minutes, and I failed horribly. So I'm probably going to skip a bunch of stuff, but hopefully it still makes sense, because I could talk a lot for endlessly about the materials I select, why I select them, how I use them, how I put them together, and see, here I go, I'm just, blah. Okay, so I use found objects to create big installations, sometimes sculptures. They're also interactive kind of performances and what's the other word? Like public kind of participation projects. So when Dani first asked me, I'm gonna kind of confess a little bit, when Dani first asked me to participate, I was like, public art? Like, I don't know that, I've never done any public art. And she's like, no, you've done work in the public. And so I was kind of trying to wrap my head around it, because I've not had any of these fantastic commissions, which I'm shooting for. But I have done like large scale works in public, and oftentimes that seek like a public interaction and response, and oftentimes using the public's help to either gather materials and sort of tell these stories in a way, and also sharing stories. So again, I could talk forever about that. I'm gonna try not to. So these are some of my, they're somewhat public, but also more kind of traditional gallery space work. Using a lot of furniture, extension cords, found objects. There ends up being kind of sort of like a vocabulary that I end up using over and over again. Like, you might have a favorite color. So some of my favorite materials are, sheets and mirrors and jars and dressers and fabrics and cushions and carpet. Oh my. So some of these are in kind of non-traditional art spaces, like a Walgreens window. So you don't necessarily go to Walgreens to look at art, but here's this Walgreens that participates in this art project that all of a sudden you're walking by and you see art. And a lot of these pictures you'll kind of see, you'll start to notice like some of the same objects used over and over again. And that's intentional. Well, it's intentional, and it's also kind of out of necessity, because like once these objects are down, once the show is over, the sculpture doesn't exist anymore. It just doesn't, because it was built in that space. It's very site specific. And so, but I keep these materials to kind of use them over and over and over again. And so I also love to use architectural oddities, or like the actual space itself. And then also kind of the limitations that are provided, either limitations that I set up for myself or limitations that are unavoidable. So limitations that I might set up are, okay, I'm only going to use these materials. But limitations that might be given to me are like, okay, this is a historical site, you can't nail on the wall. Time's a huge limitation that I work within. I'm trying not to procrastinate, but still, time is a very valuable limitation. Money's a good limitation. Help is a good limitation. Like, so all of these, gravity is a fantastic limitation, right? You can't deny it, gravity exists. And so it's like, how do you get something to exist in a space that gravity wants to kind of deny, you know? I don't know if that makes sense, but hopefully. So this, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this project because it is in a more understandably a public space. It's at the Daring Estate. It was last year. And so this is probably my most monumentally exhaustive work to date. So there was like a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, mostly mine, that went into this. And so as you can see, it's like a stack of dressers partially covered and buried in dirt, and then, you know, grass growing up around it. And so I created this thinking about the history of Daring Estate. And do you guys know Daring Estate? So there's those architectural sites, like the middens that have been found, which are essentially like the kitchen trash of the peoples way back, like the first peoples that kind of lived there. And so the midden kind of is this archaeological treasure trove of history, and it kind of tells about the people that were there. So I'm kind of recreating my own midden using dressers, which is an object I'm really fond of. So these are some kind of behind the scenes pictures, which I didn't really show a lot, but I had this whole, like, you know, group of dressers that I would kind of select on site, like in the moment. So you kind of plan out as much as you can ahead of time, and then a lot of it just happens on site. And so my process in general is very playful, like even going back to those earlier installations. Oftentimes I'll just take a bunch of junk to a space and start playing around and see what fits where. And so even though I was limited just to my own limitation to just the dressers, building them up the way I did happened on site, intuitively responding to the dressers as if like in a conversation. So we built up the front, and then we built up the back with filler materials. That's me contemplating my decisions in life and why am I doing this? Because it got even worse after that. So it's a lot of dirt, and then more dirt. And then this is it. And this was a few months later. So part of what I really why I did this project this way is because I knew that over the 3 months that it was there, that it was going to change, that the grass was going to grow, that the weeds were going to grow, that insects were probably going to infest it, if not potentially alligators, who knows. But and then that the dressers themselves would fall apart. So in a sense that the land would kind of reclaim it for its own. And it was, people could walk up it, and so it was fun. And it was fun to visit too. Like every now and then I would go and I would weed it, and I would just see like bits fall off, and I love details, so I could show you a million. And this is the de-installation, which looks a lot like the installation, except what you don't see are the wasps that infested it and the ants that had made like the entire thing was an anthill at the end. So the de-installation was much more of a kind of like an X Games type situation. So I had a lot of help for that. So as you were speaking about having a crew behind you, like I had some very amazing helpers, including our very own Dani. Yeah, so it was fantastic. I say that now because I'm a little delirious. I've forgotten how painful it was. So I was also thinking and remembering some projects that I did out in public spaces. They weren't necessarily like seen by potentially a lot of people, but some of them might have been. And so there was a series of crush letters that I wrote to crushes that I'd either had or have had. And I was traveling a lot doing residencies, so I was doing them all over the place. So they were in France and Vermont. This was in Krakow. I was invited to do them at a performance festival. So I was, in a bar, like on top of these people drinking. The guy that was hosting us, his car, the bathroom door, the alley where everyone peed, the tree. So I was kind of finding just any space I could. And when I first when I first was doing this project, I was like thinking, I was in somewhere where it was snowing, and I was like, I was really trying to problem solve how I could get the letter in the snow without showing my footprints. Because oftentimes I want the artist hand, like I want my hand to show, I want it to be obvious that I did it, but this time I didn't want it to happen. And so I was making it really complicated and convoluted and trying to think of tools that could do that for me. And then I finally was in my studio and I just looked over and there was a roll of tape. And I was like, why am I making this so hard? I'm just gonna write this on the wall in tape. And it's so awesome and such a great counterpoint to the dressers because they're so heavy. Like, it's a roll of tape. And like, there's really nothing to like putting it up and taking it down. And so I've kind of forgotten how much I love these, and I'm gonna have to start finding some crushes. Watch out, you guys. No, I'm kidding. So some of them go back to like elementary school. And they're like intentionally funny and almost kind of anonymous. Like I can do this, but I'm probably never gonna send that letter to Jonathan. I'm gonna skip that one. And so this is another project where a lot of what I do is I kind of notice these accidental. So some of the projects I collect materials and I find specific materials like dressers, or I also have this stockpile of materials that I've inadvertently collected. I swear I'm not a hoarder, but I'm not a hoarder. But I've collected and kept because I use them again and again and again, right? So I just have to kind of keep them on hand. But I've sort of become, over the years, I've become fascinated with these, like, what I'm calling accidental collections. So my text messages became one of those accidental collections. So it's not my current phone, but it's like the first phone that I got. I don't know if it was 2005 or when it was, but that let me text message, and that I text messaged back and forth, right? So I, at some point, was looking through my phone, trying to find something, and lo and behold, I found this folder that had all of my sent text messages, and another folder that had all of my received text messages. And I was lost. I was like, total nostalgia, like scrolling through these, thousands of text messages, and I was like oddly, emotional. I was like, this is so bizarre. This is so dumb. Like, these are temporary. They're trash. They're meant to be disposable. But here I have this whole collection of them. What am I gonna? I have to do something with these. So I ended up. I was learning fancy calligraphy, and I'd set out to do all of them in calligraphy on paper. And so this is. They've had several iterations, and so this iteration is at the DuPont building downtown Miami. And there's some behind the security desk that are framed. And then at the time, originally when this was shown, there were empty storefronts on Flagler. And so they let me fill those storefronts up also with the text messages. And so in here, I've also invited people to send me text messages. Like, I left my phone number. I was like, is this a bad idea? I don't know. But so I've invited people to text me so that then they could then become a part of this project. And so part of what I find so interesting about these text messages is that even though these are my text messages, they're oftentimes kind of ubiquitous, right? Like, many of you probably have an LOL, right? Or who is this? Or where are you? You know, like a lot of these sort of same communications get said by all of us. And then I also love the misspellings, sort of like prior to autocorrect, right? The things that would be misspelled. So I don't know if you noticed that everything is actually misspelled here. And so I left it that way intentionally. And so, yeah. So one more. Okay, so I never did all the 5,000. I don't know if that was something you were gonna ask. But it kind of leads into like a current project that I'm doing now. And it's my parents' junk drawer. And so that's the drawer from the house I grew up in and all the junk. And so they still live in this house and they still use this drawer. So one Thanksgiving several years ago, I went home and I needed something like tape. And so I went to the junk drawer because that's where everything is, the catch-all drawer, right? The everything drawer. And so I just became, the same thing with the text messages. I became fascinated by all this junk that was in there that had been in there since I was a kid. like those 10-cent paintbrushes that I know I used when I was 5, that same roll of Scotch tape. And so I ended up pulling it out and like undoing the contents all over the table. My mom walks by, "What are you doing?" Like, she's like, okay, she knows by now just to let me alone. And then, so I start like cataloging it and noticing it. And way in the back, underneath everything, they still had a receipt from 1967, from before they even moved into that house, of like appliances that they no longer had. So I just thought that was the funniest thing. And so I started to think about this migratory pattern that happens in these kind of catch-all drawers, of the stuff that you use most often comes to the front and the other stuff goes to the back. And so I'm redoing this project. I've once again asked my parents to send me their junk drawer. And they did it this time without too much back talk. And so this is, on the left is actually the junk drawer in situ, right, in its real habitat. And then some of the objects on the wall. And so I'm doing this at the Miami airport. They have some vitrines, you know, so if you're walking around the airport waiting for a flight or just got off one, check it out. But I'm also inviting people to send me either their images, inventories, or stories about their own junk drawers, because I'm kind of starting a different kind of collection. So that page isn't ready yet, but it will be in a couple of weeks. Okay, thank you guys, sorry.
Well, thank you all for being here and for this opportunity. My name is Carola Bravo. I'm going to show you some of my public art projects, but before I do that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my work in general. Some of you maybe know my video work and how that connects with the studio work and the public art work that I do. Okay. My work in here, let me show you here first. All these words and concepts are very important in my work. Everything that has to do with defining spaces, with dimensions, proportions, places, maps, geography, everything connects in my work. I have been always interested in I don't know if you know the story by Jorge Luis Borges about the map of an empire that was done in the same size of the real territory. And that concept of reality and illusion has been always present in my work. I'm interested, as I just said, in defining spaces. Like a traveler, I draw maps. Have been always fascinated with geometry, dimensions, scales, proportions, and everything that can physically define a space. But not only physically, but also all that space has to say. I believe in spaces as containers of memories. So define our space, I always see it as the first signs of our existence. I believe in connections also. I always picture myself in the middle of a room as a spider, drawing lines to all the corners around me, so I hold myself in the middle of the space and I don't fall. And that has taken me to public art. Public art is about that. It's about connecting to the space, to the places. And right now, public art is more of a process of engaging artists' ideas in the public realm. Being an artist and also a trained architect, that I have been always fascinated with the idea of my work being part of the public space. But it has challenges, as Carol said, as an artist. for any artist, is completely different, the process of creative process of a public art piece than to the one that we do in our studios. Specifically, I think 5 areas are very different. The first one is that from the beginning, we create a public art piece thinking that it has to have the intention of being staged in the physical public domain from the beginning. We are working for someone else or for a place. That doesn't happen in a studio work. It requires engagement with the public. It has to be accessible. So from the beginning, we have to think that it has to connect. It has to relate to the physical context. This is very important in public art. It is a site-specific work, and the scales, dimensions, and proportions and materials are key to any public, permanent, in this case, public art. It has to grow also from the history or social context of the place that we are working in. And it is always a teamwork, as you just said also. It has to be done with a group of people. So I divided some of my work in different series, and I'm going to show you how the studio work and the installations that I do relate to the public work. These are installations in a museum where you see geometric forms and shapes and lines, a lot of drawing in my work that connect everything, and how those pieces became part of a public lobby in a public building. This is in Caracas, Venezuela. I'm from Venezuela. So how the piece from being in a gallery or a museum in that case came into a public building, the floors and the walls. Those same shapes, this is also a public piece that I call a flat monument. It's a series of, I call them open scars, a series of scars in the pavement that have engraved different text and poems in areas in Caracas where it's a political piece, where people die because of the political reasons that we are living. So I have done only one of them. I hope I can do all the other scars someday. And it is a monument, a flat monument. Every year people go there and put flowers on top of the piece. That came, the same geometric lines and shapes. This is here in Miami, in Brickell Avenue. It's a metal fence. It is inspired by the lights of the reflected on water, but it comes from those installations and those geometric pieces that I showed you before. This was done with the Swire Corporation in Brickell and 7th Avenue. These are vertical works that were shown also in a museum, and how they become public pieces, drawings in a glass windows of a public building. This is also in Caracas. And it came to Miami. This is in Miami. This is a Benian Street building in Brickell. It's a lobby, it's a long lobby, and it was a painted mural, and I incorporated lighting also. And those geometric lines and drawings also, they became part of this is a big project that I did just in 2011 before I moved to Miami. It is a barrio in Venezuela, that area that you see there, that was a project, and it's a whole project of pavement, murals, and this public art changed completely the area, as you're gonna see in a few more pictures. It was before. was later. This was before, was later. The walls in the room. Later. So planters, benches, I think it was 4,000 square linear feet of murals were painted. Studio work again, in this case, horizontal lines and drawings, became a mural in a public park, and it has engraved poems in the marble, in the granite. How small pieces go to medium-sized areas, to interiors of homes, and then big projects in the public projects. Or this one, this is not built yet. Imprecise cartographies. This is 4 pieces that are part of one of the Royal Caribbean's cruise ships. And they are drawn in different drawings in stone, maps. And they come from this kind of work that I did a long time ago, drawings on floors and walls in parks. This project has to do with making people see the roots, which are very important, and we usually don't see them. It was in a park in Venezuela, and it came to Miami. This is in Pinecrest Gardens. The floor is a terrazzo floor, and the roots are coming from the outside of the park into the inside of the room. How drawings, studio work, drawings of, these are a series of glaciers, topographic maps of glaciers that are melting because of climate change, small pieces, and they go to the public realm. These are ephemeral works that I did in different cities. This is in Mérida, in Venezuela, the other one in Caracas, and this is in Panama. And it came to Miami. This is the floor for the Royal Caribbean a new innovation building. This was done with the Miami-Dade Art in Public Places. It was a commission that I won, and I was very happy, of course, to make all those drawings. It's a painting on the concrete floor. This innovation lab is where all the designers and engineers and architects meet to design the ships. So it's a very interesting place. And how that could be even larger, this is a design for a big square that is not done yet. And now it's going to come to Doral. This is a project that I won because of the DORCAM call to artists and the City of Doral for the Baptist Hospital. It's a metal facade, a metal piece that is going to be in front of the facade. It comes also from drawings. They're called bathymetric charts of some areas of Biscayne Bay. It's called Water Map, and it's going to be metal and pix art. It's going to have light in the back. And the process, it has been a very interesting process to build this piece. It's under construction yet. That's the way that we have to, I have to adapt of course, adapt the ideas and try to, so we could make it work. I'm going to show you a little video of what is happening with one of the modules. We're building, I think there are about 10 of them that they go together. And as I said, of course, it's a teamwork. It's impossible to do this kind of work by yourself. And that's one of the richness, I think, of public art for an artist, because you learn from many people. So there are This is being built in Atlanta, in a company called Metal Tech. They work with big facades of buildings in metal. So I traveled there and I met with them and we designed the whole piece.
But that seam is not welded, so it's going to move. If that was welded there,
it's a very interesting process.
It won't move as bad.
Okay, and the videos. I'm not going to talk about my videos today, but I just want to say they are also a very strong part of my practice as an artist. Video installations, I call them movable maps. They all have the concept, the same concept of defining spaces and a reality and illusion, the combination of reality and illusion. I'm projected there, I'm not there. And installations with drawing and video, and I brought them because they are also part of the public space right now. They are at the Miami airport, the Miami International Airport Moving Images Gallery, where you can see if you are traveling out of the country. They are in the terminal, in the International Terminal J, and you're gonna see a series called Migration Dreams. Those are the. But the videos also have been part of the public space here at the Royal Caribbean in the Innovation Lab. I also did 2 videos that are on these acoustic screens, and they're part of the Innovation Lab. And I'm gonna say also that I have a project called Harvest Project. This is my community educational project that I run in Pinecrest Gardens. I have dedicated many years of my life to education, and I love it. So this is a project that promotes art appreciation through different art experiences. And just to finish, I have to say public art is always a teamwork. I'm going to show you some pictures of working with many people at the same time. And thank you.
Thank you everybody. Thank you to Dr. Damien and the artists. Now we will have a question and answer session between the moderator and I'm going to bring this microphone to the table.